This is just a brief closing session, just to pull us all back together, really, at the end of the day. I think it's been a really interesting day. There's been some really fantastic conversations, a huge amount of energy, some really interesting challenges, I think, for us as educators, as researchers, as collaborators in all sorts of forms. So I wonder if we want to just take 5 minutes to give us an opportunity as a group to see if there are any key points, maybe thinking about observations on the day or things that we might want to take forward. But I am also aware that everybody's quite tired because it's been quite an intense day. Couple of seconds. There we go. Alf.
I suppose it's something that's run through the day for me. It's been this idea of the contestability of knowledge. And I think I've witnessed people contesting their own thoughts throughout the day. And that just seems to be such a critical such a critical idea for us going forward, to hold on to that idea of what might make us unique, or what we might be able to offer to the ITT landscape of the future.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really exciting. Louise up there. Could somebody volunteer to run around with this microphone for me? Otherwise I'm going to... Thank you. Up there. Thank you.
I think for me, as is so often the case, the question of actually what it's all for has come up quite a lot. So in terms of educational purpose, we talk about that quite a lot at kind of school level and at qualification level, but actually at teacher education level, really interested in the idea of whether teacher education is different if the purpose of education changes, whether teacher education remains the same or needs to lag behind that, I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting question that's been raised for me.
Thank you. That's great. Other comments? We could do with 2 of these microphones, couldn't we?
There just seems to be a recurrent, almost too polite critiquing of the current policy context in England going on throughout the day, and extraordinarily articulate suggestions for ways in which it could be better done. I just wonder if a collection of educators with the kind of experience and wisdom that is here collected in this room could somehow coordinate a way of persuading the policymakers to shift or see things differently. It would be a very powerful outcome.
Speaking as one of the 100, and I know there are others in this room who recently just got called enemies of promise for trying to write a letter to our current minister. I mean, I'm particularly keen on thinking, how do we work together? How do we organise together? How do we have a voice? And one of the best things would be is if we have that terrible thing occasionally where we all sort of stand in a firing squad and shoot at each other. And actually, I think there's a really interesting question about how do we coordinate ourselves together? I mean, I wonder whether any of those who were talking about policy and evidence earlier might have thoughts on coordination. John? Yes?
Okay, thanks. I did say, could I use this session just to say a couple of words about the BERA RSA inquiry that's currently going on, that I'm chairing, looking into the relationship between research and teacher education. This is an inquiry that started about 3 months ago, and it's just during this current calendar year. And we have come together, we are commissioning a number of papers that try to bring together the evidence on the relationships between research and different forms of professional education. So we're looking at what's happening across the UK, we're looking at evidence internationally, we're looking at philosophical principles underlying where research fits into professional learning, we're looking at what constitutes research-based clinical practice. We're looking at the relationship between research and teachers' lifelong learning. And we're looking at a paper, we've commissioned a paper on research and school improvement. So we're trying to bring some evidence together, which we will start disseminating. Working with the RSA jointly is great because they're a body much better than people involved in education in thinking about strategy and influence. We have an influence plan as part of what we're doing. We are currently, and that's why I wanted to have a word now, We currently have a call for evidence. If you go onto the BERA website, that's bera.co.uk, if you go onto the website, you will see the call for evidence there in relation to this inquiry. And we do want as many different sorts of people, teacher educators, of course, but others that you know across the system who might have a view about the role of research in professional learning of all different sorts. We do need that evidence to get together. What we're doing is then, we're launching an interim report in September in the BERA conference, following which there'll be a second round of work. We're having a teachers' survey, and we're also starting to take our preliminary findings out to a wide range of different political audiences to sharpen up our thinking before we come towards a final report very early next year. So we are doing what we can through BERA and the RSA jointly to raise some of the really, really important issues that actually underpin the day that we've had today, and to actually start to engage. This is not actually about working with the current government. We're pitching this in time for debates for the next election, though I suspect in terms of public influence, we're talking about an election after that before things start to change, it would seem to me. But so some things are happening, and I'm sure there are other things that this school on its own could do as well.
Thanks very much, John. Just a correction, it's www.bera.ac.uk. I'm reliably informed. Okay, Guy. Okay, point over here.
One of the things I've been mulling during the day is from the point of view of education academics, not just being the blob or the enemies of promise, but how we talk and who we talk to. I was very struck by this in Andrew's presentation about his scarring encounters, being a member of the expert panel, and conversations about, you know, we've traditionally talked in complex language to policymakers, and the evidence seems to be that that's not very effective. I was at the Sunday Times Festival of Education last weekend. There were about 2,000 people there, 100 and something presenters, of whom perhaps 3 or 4 were education academics. Now, is that their fault? Or does it say something about us? Does it say something about how we speak and who we speak to? That not many of us get invited into that forum, which could be hugely, and is hugely influential. So that's what's going on around my
Some of us got invited but decided not to hang out with Anthony Selden. But yeah, I think
that's a feeble excuse, Kerry.
It's a principled excuse. But I think this is a really important question. What are our media? What are our networks? I mean, one of the things that's been interesting today is actually the number of people that are regularly using Twitter just amongst this group, for example, is incredibly low. It's a very rapid way of sharing information, rapidly engaging with each other, rapidly mobilizing each other. One of the things I'd like to do is also bring Michael Shaw into the conversation and say, he's just looked at me, you know, the Times Ed in all of this, you know, how, this is very unfair, but, you know, what role might an organisation like the Times Ed play? What role do you see yourselves playing in acting as a forum for these sorts of debates and discussions we've been having?
I'm going to attempt to dodge the question slightly. I think what's happened with the TES over the last 10 years is it's gone very much from being a newspaper with a website attached to suddenly being a website where 2.5 million teachers are uploading and downloading material with a newspaper on the side. And it has now become much more of an open access forum. Last month we launched blogs, we've launched groups, we've launched a lot of places where anyone in this room, if you wanted to set up a group, launch a blog, you could do that. And we're then going to find ways of getting those blogs into the news streams and into the news blogs. So that's a technical solution, that there is a platform for this. That's
great, thank you. Okay, I want to wrap up my observations really with 2 points. One of them is there are really urgent challenges that we're facing over the next 40, 50, 60 years. These are non-trivial. We're living in what they call the Anthropocene. We are confronting significant shifts in demographics. We're confronting significant shifts in climate and its impacts. We're looking at radical and increasing economic and social inequalities, and we're looking at significant demographic changes. So there is some urgency to some of these debates. This is not a conversation that we should be having on our own. There are others who are having the conversation about how do we respond to these challenges. And what's interesting is how frequently they overlook education. They completely miss the fact that there is a school in every community. People are deeply connected to education. I mean, one of the curses of education and one of its strengths is the fact that everybody went to school and so everybody's got an opinion. But, on the upside to that, it means that in principle, people are connected and engaged with schools in the way they aren't with many, many other institutions. So there is a huge opportunity, really, in recognizing that there are challenges out there that we can connect up with other social movements and other organizations about. This is not about us having to invent this all on our own. We can connect up with the others. The second point I really want to make is also that we're at a time of such significant change for universities. Universities are being asked to do not just teaching and research, but also to engage much more widely, and we are being judged on that basis. And one of the advantages of something like the REF impact measures, however pernicious it might be if we look at it from one angle, is that it also opens up space for those of us in the university who seek to do more applied and engaged work. This is a real moment of opportunity for us to draw on education's strengths. So I would like to conclude by saying that my sense is we are actually living in interesting times in both the most risky and the most positive ways. And if we can simply articulate ourselves with each other and with those people who are already concerned with what we're concerned with, we may be able to make a difference. Now, what I would like to do now is to hand it over to Lorna and to our resident poet for the day to conclude, and then to Tim Bond to close the conference. So, Lorna. We need a mic.
Thank you, Kerry. Well, I'm very aware that there have been lovely and fantastic creative things going on all over the building today, and I actually regret I haven't been able to get out there and see things and take part in the discussions and the debates and the doing that's been going on. But creativity is also really coalesced in the foyer, and I'd like to thank everybody who's contributed in all sorts of ways to making our beautiful bunting, and who scrawled on the walls and the windows and who filled in their post-it notes with their ideas. And we suggested to people when they came along 3 areas that might inspire their contributions. Helen Woodhouse's wise and wonderful words that we heard earlier on, poetry that people remembered from their own childhood. But the thing we found that really got people going was thinking about their own school days. And so much of the product of our sessions was people thinking about remembering, sometimes fondly, sometimes less so, experiences that they had at school. And so for me, that really underlined how today's children will remember in the future how they are inspired in and out of our classrooms. And so the continual reinspiration goes on and on and on and on. And I'd now very much love to welcome Rhian, who has crafted and built all our words and joined them all together into a poem. She's going to read it for us now, and we're going to find a way of getting it onto the website as well, so that you'll be able to go and reread it in your leisure and share it later on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. As she said, this basically is a consolidation of all the memories people have had from their school salad days. Eisel tracing paper for bog roll, Veruca socks floured in talcum powder, wallpaper textbooks, tapping boobless into the calculator, tucking skirts into our knickers for cartwheels and handstands, cat cradling on the sports field, British bulldog on the playground. Exams in the gym, Mr. Stokes coughing hints at your answers, newspaper on the tables for painting, the country and maypole dances, bow to your partner and all promenade, sing I want to be with you. The bubblegum graveyard under the desk and the egg and spoon race, the futility of fractions, the overzealous sprint during kiss chase, 2s up on a silk cut during the cross-country run, the girls changing room after netball, an impulse deodorant Dutch oven, The Come and Praise hymn book, piercing your ears with a compass, winter legs mottled like corned beef, a migraine of recorders in chorus, black plimsolls from Woolies, tightrope walking an upside-down bench, Mrs. Crossley is a lesbian on the blackboard, Chinese burns and skipping rope chants. When X was an unknown number, not a moribund, useless shit of a past lover, when every computer career search staked your calling as a probation officer, poring over just 17 during registration, what you don't actually blow, cider with Rosie becoming cider with black. Yeah. That was one of mine. I just did that again. A copy of Just 17 during registration, what you don't actually blow, cider with Rosie becoming cider with black, drawing pins stabbing into your souls.
Thank you.
Well, there's not a lot to say after that. It said it all. Kerry's given the big picture. The poem is given the human context. I mean, what a fabulous day. I'm really pleased to have been here, proud to be the temporary person holding the baton for the school. I mean, it's really good to see so many people who've been former leaders, former big contributors, and also to have so many of the future leaders of the department sitting here as well. What I really want to say is thank you to everybody who has made today possible. And one of the big messages I will take away from today is, as we saw our history in the past, we clearly have faced many challenges. It was interesting talking to the senior managers in the university about some of their memories of some of those challenges, which is a conversation I've never had and would never have had it not been for today. And similarly, talking to head teachers and talking to other people about how they see the immediate future and how they see the urgent challenges, both for them and for us in a time of considerable change. I'm sure that we've got the resilience, the resourcefulness, and we've certainly shown the human relationships and the creativity in today, which should take us forward in those circumstances. So what I'd like to do is thank everybody who's travelled, some people big distances, to come here today. And I'd like to invite you all to drinks. Is there food? Or I can't remember. Anyway, there will be some sort of, there is, thank you, Teresa. As so often, you often save me in these moments. There is going to be hospitality in various forms at 5:30 on the 4th floor. Please do come and join us. And also, if you want to, between now and then, there are other local hostelries around Berkeley Square and just off the various streets around here. I know we're going to be thanking people more formally later, but I would just like to, in case there are some people here who are not going to be there later, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's put this together, made the day run so well. There's been an awful lot of logistics. I left the department last night sometime after 8. There were still people organising things for today. I was in here at 7 this morning. There were people in ahead of me organising today. I made them jump. But so, you know, it has been a great effort. It's been a great effort in both senses. It's required a lot of organisation and endeavour, but also it's been great in the sense of a wonderful success. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, your team. Thank you, everybody else who's participated.